Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Brooke, and today I'm coming to you guys with a very juicy story about a murder that happened in PEI. So today my story is going to be about a girl who, her name was Mary Tulpin, and she was the daughter of Margaret Tulpin and Johnny Tulpin. She was born here in Prince Edward Island, Canada. So on the night of December 31st in 1886, Mary went to this party, this New Year's Eve's party, and she met a man that was named William Milliman. So at this New Year's Eve party, apparently Mary and William, they hit it off. They liked each other, and they were talking and whatnot. And they actually stayed up till about 3 a.m., and William ended up walking Mary home. So months go by or whatever, a while goes by, and they're still hanging out and talking. And I guess Mary ended up telling her sister, one of her sisters, because she had 10 siblings, okay? But she ended up telling one of her sisters that she was pregnant and that William was the father. So eventually Mary and William's relationship and her pregnancy became the talk of the town. And mind you, this was a small Scottish, like Irish community, so that was, to everybody, was just absolutely insane. So after hearing all the rumors, William actually arranged a little meetup with Mary, which was Sunday, June 26th in 1886. And mind you, Mary's brother actually had just passed away. He had fallen ill, not sure how or with what, but he passed away. So Mary's little brother, his funeral was actually held on the 28th. And Mary actually didn't attend the service. She stayed home to watch her sister's baby. And soon after the family returned home, Mary kind of left without telling anybody. So it was after sundown that Mary actually left without telling anybody to go meet William. And it was said that she was only wearing a light cotton dress, stockings, and a pair of boots. And unfortunately, that would have been the last time that Mary's family and her parents would have ever seen her alive. So later on, the parents became very concerned after Mary didn't arrive home, just like any normal parent would be concerned. So her father went out looking for her. He went to the neighbors and he called out for her, it was just very unusual and out of character for Mary to not return home. So they knew something bad would have happened. So days later, Mary's father, Johnny, he actually went to the Millman's house to speak with William's parents. And he also went to his attorneys to see if they could put a warrant out for William's arrest, because in his mind, he was the boyfriend and he obviously could have had something to do with it. So word spread very quickly about Mary's disappearance in this tiny little community, and a bunch of men, about a dozen men, came together for a search party. And they actually did discover 2 clues, which is pretty lucky. They discovered Mary's handkerchief, which was actually found by the riverbank. And the other clue was that this weight that they actually use for boats, which is just a big rock, was missing from the Millman's boat. So the search party decided to actually take like grappling hooks and go check out the river all around it to see if they could find anything. And actually on July 4th, they did discover Mary's body in the river, and it was actually 4 to 5 feet down and around her waist. What was it? It was the missing stone from the Millman's boat. So 3 physicians were actually hired to examine Mary's body once they found it. And they found out that Mary was unfortunately shot twice in the head. And something else they found was that she was 6 months pregnant. So after finding out about the recovery of Mary's body, William actually traveled to Charlottetown to speak with his attorney because of everything Mary's father was accusing him of. Meanwhile, this massive investigation was going on, and on 3 days later, on July 7th, William was actually arrested. So during the arraignment, John Millman, which was William's father, he tried to give his son an alibi, and he testified in court that he was with his son that day. But after doing so, he actually fainted. And once he came back, or once he came to, he admitted to the courts that he actually was not with his son that day and that he lied. So after admitting that he wasn't with his son that night, that he was actually at a church meeting with his wife, William was sent to county jail in Charlottetown to await trial. So the Supreme Court trial actually began on January 24th in 1888. And after the jury was selected, the prosecution told the jury that there was pretty much just only 2 questions. And then there was 2 answers. Was Mary Tulpin murdered, and who did it? So Peter, the attorney, actually said that the answer to the first question was obvious, and that he would prove that William was guilty about the second one. So the Crown called 48 witnesses to the stand in the course of 11 days, which back then it grew a very large crowd because stuff like this doesn't happen all the time. And most of the evidence was beyond dispute. And like the medical examiner testified that the 2 bullets that were recovered, one was actually flattened against Mary's skull and the other one went straight through. Now listen to this. This is weird. One of William's friends actually testified against him, saying that William came to him days before Mary's murder and asked to borrow his .32 caliber revolver. And when he borrowed it, it had no bullets in it. Okay. So, which is kind of weird, right? So, 2 days after Mary's body was found, William returned the gun to his friend. Now get this. He returned the gun with 3 bullets in it and 2 were missing, and the gun had been fired. Now another person that was close with William actually said that William tried to get him to sign an affidavit saying that they were together the night of June 28th, which was the night of Mary's disappearance, when they were actually not together. Also, a 13-year-old girl said that she seen William that night on the river in a boat, which is weird. And the boat's owner said that the rock that was tied to Mary's body was actually used in William's boat to anchor his boat. Now, all the evidence was pointing towards William, but there was some things that raised some uncertainties. Like, people were saying that they seen a stranger, some guy dressed in black that was by the river that night. And another person said that they seen 2 men and a woman in a wagon just flying by the river that night. Now, after the prosecution rested, William's attorney actually had 18 witnesses that he would like to come to the stand, and 2 of them were actually his family members. Now, his mother, Joanna, she actually told the court that that night of June 28th of Mary's disappearance that she was at a church meeting. And when she came home, William was in the kitchen dressed in dark clothing. Now, remember people saying that they seen a man in dark clothing at the river that night. His sister was the other one. And she actually said that she also was home with William that night, but he told his sister that he was going down to the river to bathe. Now, at 4 o'clock that afternoon, after finishing his summary, Justice of the Peace, Mr. Hensley, or whatever his name was, he sent the jurors to the juror room to deliberate, and it actually took them 4 to 5 hours to come back with a verdict. Now, when the jury actually came up with their verdict and they announced it in the courtroom that he was guilty, William actually fainted and he actually had to be carried out of the courtroom. Now, after a few days, on February 9th, the crowds returned to Charlottetown to learn William's fate. And Justice Hensley declared that William had shown no mercy to Mary, and that even though she was innocent, she had done no harm. He declared that William did not deserve to live and that he was to be hanged in Charlottetown. Now, William was to remain in custody until Tuesday, April 10th, and on that day, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., within the prison walls, he was to be hanged. Now, in March, Millman he tried to escape the prison by hitting a guard over the head, and he was captured in the courtyard, and he was shackled, and he had to remain in shackles actually till the day that they were to hang him. Now, on April 10th, Millman was brought out to the courtyard where 50 people gathered to witness his hanging. And before he was brought out, he actually asked them to blindfold him so that he wouldn't see the execution or see where he was about to be executed. So after the death warrant was read and the final prayers were read, at 8:19 William was pronounced dead. And Millman's hanging was actually one of the last hangings on PEI until the 19th century, which was actually a double hanging in 1941. So the hanging in 1941 was actually Earl Lund and Fred Phillips. They were hanged at the Queens County Jail, They were charged with the gruesome murder of an elderly shoe keeper. So if you guys are actually interested in that, let me know. Maybe I'll do a story about that one. So during the examination of Mary's body, her head was actually detached and brought to Charlottetown during the trial for evidence. And that night, her body was buried. And for some odd reason, they had no ceremony. And the family wasn't even present during the burial. The story of Mary's death was actually passed down in the Tulpin family, including details of her burial. And one of the descendants of Mary was actually very concerned with this, and they sought out to find Mary's skull. So the family member learned that the coroner's office, where Mary's head actually was sent, had actually become a pharmacy and is now a restaurant. And this is pretty crazy. By chance, there was a labeled box in the basement of the restaurant that contained Mary's skull. So, thankfully, in 2016, Mary's skull was put back with her body, and she was given a proper burial. So, it's it's great that she was put back together, but it's said that it happened to her. But that's it for the poor story of Mary Tulpin. So, yeah, if you guys are interested in hearing anything else, let me know, and I'm definitely would be willing to tell more stories about PEI.